Hello, welcome to the Crackpot Podcast.
Watch now, here we come. No time for questions. It's gonna be a beautiful day to start up a revolution. Molotov cocktails, martini shotgun shells. Wild, 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 wild one. God forbid the cops get called. I say the more the merrier inside this free for all. By God, I gotta see it fall. I got front row tickets to the greatest show of all.
Okay, good morning, James.
Morning, Lynn.
How are you feeling?
Oh, fine. Thanks for waking me up.
Yeah, I have to tell listeners that this is really all my fault, that my schedule has been really weird lately for a number of home life reasons, kids in school and travel and stuff like that. This is a Monday morning taping session, which is probably the best time for me going forward. But anyway, here we are. It's Monday morning. It's time to tape the Crackpot Podcast with James LaFond and Lynn Lockhart.
Oh, if you'd have listened to those two ladies on Twitter and done nothing but bake brownies and cookies in your kitchen, life would be so complicated.
Scrub the toilet. They
Oh,
recommended I
scrubbing the toilet.
scrub the toilet too. It's true. The toilet needs scrubbing. I'm not big on baking. I do cook every day, but I'm not like a cookie. I try not to feed my people too many cookies and cakes and stuff. So if I had other people to like poison with sugar, then I would do that. But I figure it's not that good of a thing to do. All right, we're gonna start with something we talked about before, but then it just happened to me. So we're gonna talk about it again, and that's dogs. Dogs. I was at the beach with my two children, and there were not many people there because we get there in the morning. This woman comes around with two really gigantic dogs, and they're really low set, and I thought, well, maybe they're English bulldogs, which are usually mild-mannered, but no, they were pit bulls. There was an intact male and a female, and just enormous. And the woman was not petite, okay, but she was having a real hard time hanging on to the two leashes. And so she walked past my family and sort of settled down, and the male, she could not keep hold of the male's leash. So he bounded over to where my kids were playing with buckets in the sand, and I stood up, and he got to my younger daughter before I did. He started kind of pushing her with his nose, and so I grabbed her and just kind of stepped in front of his face, and then he went for my other daughter, who was a few feet away. So I went and just kept stepping between the kid and the dog. And the woman came over and dragging the other dog and going after the leash. You know, she just couldn't even grab the leash and couldn't hang on to it. So she moved back the other way, maybe 10 yards down the beach, and sat down again. And I found the one heavy shovel in the kids' sand toys. I put the kids down, found this piece of the shovel, and I just stood there and looked at, and I stood and looked at the woman and her dogs, and I was just going to stand sentry until she left. Well, within a minute, she lost the male again. He broke free, and there was a pale-faced man sunbathing there who stood up and went after the big male. They didn't come near my children this time, but the male was just roaming around. So the white guy stood up and grabbed the leash and handed it to the lady, and she marched away with her 2 dogs, leaving my family in peace. But I was really upset. I was really stressed out. It was a big, stress release for me.
Well, you also told me that there were 2 little pale-faced lunches on the beach that made you go over these dogs that are so cute and everything.
Yeah.
If God was the micromanaging, busybody soap opera watcher of humanity that most people think he is, those dogs would have eaten those girls' faces off. Okay, just as a warning to people that these things exist for one reason. Those dogs were bred for ripping each other and people apart. They're only owned to intimidate other humans. Now, there's some misguided people, like suburban pale-faced women that think, they're addicted with the idea that dogs are just reflections of their owners and that there's no genetic component to any type of animal behavior because that's what they believe about people. They think every dog is just like naturally wonderful, but no, some dogs are just shitheads. And this is a type of dog. This is not, it's taking those dogs and expecting them not to attack somebody. It's ridiculous. It's like taking a bunch of hood rats out of a Baltimore City school and setting them up across the street from a convenience store and expecting them not to shake anybody down or beat anybody up when they come out. It's just stupid. But the main reason to have those dogs is to intimidate people. That's why men who are generally sissies have these dogs. They might have a gun, they might have a pit bull, but these are guys that don't have the nuts to stand up to an actual intact man. And a lot of the reason why chicks have these dogs is to attract guys with a criminal history as dating partners. Because if you're a chick and you don't mind recycling guy after guy, dating criminals is a pretty good gig because you get a lot of latitude with them. I mean, these guys spend their whole life devoting their tiny brain to trying to do their capers and stay away from prison. So they're completely in control of whatever woman gets their hooks into them. And they end up with a certain amount of disposable cash. They always have access to drugs. The main motivation for young women since I was 13, 14 in their dating was drugs, access to drugs. They dated guys that would get them access to drugs. There's upper class girls, middle class girls, working class girls, criminal class girls. They're all into the drugs. And women use drugs at a much higher rate than men do. People don't realize that, especially on the cultural right where women are set up on these pedestals. Practical men realize that, the American woman is basically like this creature on her hands and knees crawling through a public bathroom trying to snort a line of coke while everybody else is trying to get to the urinal. So 1950s, girls dated guys with cars. 70s and on, girls date dudes with drugs. Dudes with drugs love these big scary dogs because they're all faggots and they might have a gun but they don't know how to use it anyhow. And they want a scary dog in the yard wherever they keep their dirt in the basement of that building. So yeah, that's the history of
That's sociological. Well, this woman was on her own. She gave me the impression that she might not necessarily be interested in men just by the look of her. And she was not a small woman, all right? She looked like she could handle one dog maybe of that size. Maybe just if she was just with a female, she could handle it. But that's my big rule is that I don't care what kind of dog you have, you need to be strong enough to hold down that dog
Okay,
in
so
public.
so this was an ethnically mixed dyke, probably, right?
She was
Okay. All
a
right.
woman of color, but not that much color. A little bit
Okay.
more
Well,
than me.
this
I've been
totally.
tanning.
So she's Southern Italian. Okay.
No, no,
Okay.
no, no,
All
no.
right. So you just really solidified my supposition here.
She fits the
This,
bill.
if she was a dyke, that's all the more reason why she's out there with pit bulls trying to fish for men. Okay, because there's one thing she can't provide for a girlfriend. Okay, and it's her job. I've been friends with some
That's so
dykes,
gross.
and it's her job to go out and get the occasional,
No,
you
I don't
know,
want. Okay, stop. I don't want to know
man.
about this. Stop.
All right,
Stop. Stop.
so
Stop.
there you
Stop.
go.
Stop.
That's all you need to know.
I
Okay,
want to tell you that I did not say a word during the whole
that
whole
was
event.
good.
I
That was
just
good.
I was
That was a good job.
like swinging the one kid in my arm and trying to shield the other kid with my body, and did not speak to the woman. And the other little girls were like, "Oh, so cute, such cute dogs," and they
Have
found
you
out.
purchased your cold steel entrenching tool
I
yet?
ordered the entrenching tool, and
Okay, there you go.
that one's gonna stay in my beach. I have
Okay.
different bags. I have the go out bag and the beach bag, and so that one's gonna come with me. I felt really dumb for not having anything better than a plastic shovel.
Trenching tools. They're perfect, and your kids will love digging with an army shovel. Yeah, this is what army men used to dig foxholes and trenches with. That'd be great.
The shovel that they had is this 2-piece. It's actually pretty heavy duty. So I took apart the straight part, and I kept that, and they're like, Mommy, I need that. I was like, no, Mommy needs this. You can't have this. So
Well, hey, that was good. Even if it's not something that's an effective weapon, if it's something that could be put in their mouth instead
yeah.
of a forearm or a face,
And it also
that's
communicated to the woman that I was not having fun with her dogs nearby. I just stood there and looked at her with a stick in my hand.
well, and apparently the white knight on the beach, limited his activity to just retrieving the dog for this bimbo. So, well, why stay? Okay,
All right.
she's got to go to the beach where the guys from Oakland hang out. Okay.
So the whole dog question, the DQ, the dog question, is that we love dogs as Americans and as human beings. We love dogs.
I hate dogs. I just want to
But
kill dogs.
you don't.
Butcher
But
dogs.
you had your own dogs. I remember you told me about this.
Yeah, and I got tired of them.
You did?
And you know what? I like my friends' dogs because they seem to like me. Dogs seem to like me. Even dogs that want to attack people seem to like me. Dogs come after me, So when I visit somebody, usually the dog ends up becoming more friendly with me than all but his favorite person, in the house. But I really resent a creature that expects me to clean up its defecation. So I'm just not set up to have a dog. I had dogs when I was a kid, and I really liked my dogs a lot. But we live in a world of shitty people, especially Americans. Americans are like the most denatured, over-domesticated creatures out there. And it's really hard to kind of, I don't know, shake your finger and find an American with a decent character. In a suburban setting, which is, even with me traveling around like a bum, most of my places I go are in suburban settings. And these people, for every child they don't have, they're having an additional dog. And they consider themselves dog parents. And every pale face with a dog is like an Evan Queen with her 7th grade dropout who gets shot while he's on his way to submit his application to community college so he can become a doctor. It's the same thing. You look at, there's so little difference between people of the two polarized pigments in this society when it comes to their behavior. The real difference is that the pale people neglect and worship their dogs, where the dark people neglect and worship their children. And so all these byproducts of these twisted minds are just going to be out there making life hard on you. And I don't like being in a position where I've got to calculate how I'm going to kill this dog, right in front of people who are surely going to persecute me for it if I do it. And so I just, if I somehow became like king of the United States, I would have, initiative number one would probably be all pit bulls would be just liquidated. They would be thrown into furnaces. And no family would be able to have more dogs than children.
Oh, that's
okay?
Good. Yeah.
And I would send my goons around, and you got 0 kids and 2 dogs. Dogs die. See you later. Okay, coming with us.
Dogs, death squads.
Yeah, I would send out dog death squads. I've been attacked by dogs like 8 or 9 times in my life. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's literally people setting their dogs on you, but sometimes it's just a dog just having been mishandled
and the people acting clueless. Like the people you in your neighborhood where you walk, just watching as their pack of dogs approaches you, and same with me, that these dogs are like on top of my kids, and the people are just, oh, that's interesting.
You know what? If I could write a children's book, and I think I might do this now, okay? Bob's telling me about these timber wolves that they introduced from Canada. They're wiping out moose and elk herds, and these things are big. I mean, these suckers are like man size, okay?
Yeah.
I would like to do a story about a group of Canadian timber wolves that get set loose in a suburban municipality or an American city somewhere, and they have like mohawks and stuff like that, and they have Indian names, and they just go around and they start wiping out all the dogs. Yeah, that would be great.
I was picturing what would happen if 2 days ago at the beach was like a LaFond story, and just there was now like 2 eviscerated dog corpses on the beach and all the families around, and I was like, what would we do? I think we'd just like, okay, kids, our day at the beach is over. We have to go now. Uncle James
you know what?
2 dogs.
Yeah, that can't stand. I mean, you can't to have a dangerous animal like that. These things. The first Conan movie, Conan the Barbarian, his father gets attacked by these things. I mean, these little guys are like perfect for grabbing people, grabbing men, and actually pulling them down on the ground. Most men don't realize how strong a pit bull is. Once he starts yanking on you, there's a guy that's actually the best friend of a friend of mine who's well over 6 feet tall, well over 300 pounds. He's a pimp. Okay. And I actually watched a video of this guy in a car with one of his hoes, and another man of his mahogany ethnicity comes up to him and sticks a gun in his face. This guy's in a convertible on the Las Vegas Strip. He grabs the guy, okay, takes the gun away from him, picks him up, pile drives him on his head, like breaks this guy's collarbone and everything, stomps him a little bit. And then when the cops and the ambulance get there, this dude's standing there in the second and third video, cussed at him. That's what you get, boy. That's what you get. You mess with the wrong man. And his girlfriend's, okay, now this guy, I mean, this dude looks like he could be on the offensive line for an NFL team. Okay. This guy, he was going to collect some debts. He got attacked by a pit bull, and this thing dragged him down on the ground. Okay, and I used to wrestle. My friend Does had a dog that was half pit bull and half boxer, and the thing was psychotic, and it wouldn't bite me because I was his friend. But this thing would literally, I was 154 pounds. This thing would literally get the best of me. We'd spend maybe an hour wrestling or something like that. This thing would run and jump at me at head level. He would try to headbutt me in the face. He'd jump like 10 feet out. Oh, no. Okay, and I would use it to practice wing blocks. Okay, and he would sometimes knock me off my feet. Does was just really like rock hard Pollock. So he would just grab him by the scruff of his neck and wrestle him. But this is the kind of animal you're talking about. So this 350-pound man who, can dispose of like 99% of the men on the planet in a couple of seconds. Some dog that was about a third of his weight by itself dragged him to the ground. Now, he lost two of his fingers. He lost the pinky and the ring finger of the left hand while this thing was chewing on his arm. He used, and this is how strong this dude is. I could do it too. With my right hand, I could do it. If he was eating my right hand, I couldn't snap his legs one at a time with my left hand, but I could snap a dog's legs with one hand. Okay, because of my stick fighting training, I got Popeye forms. But that's what this guy did while this dog was dragging him on the ground. So now he's an 80, 90-pound dog is dragging this 340-pound dude to wherever. He's one by one, he reaches out with his right hand and he snaps its legs. And this dog is still chewing them, still eating fingers. And then finally, when he gets the legs snapped, this dog can no longer drag him. So he drags the dog over to a pile of broken masonry and wood, and he grabs a 2x4 and he beats this thing in the pudding. Okay, that's what you're dealing with. Okay, it's basically a grappling machine. Those jaws are used for wrestling. It's not for like ripping and biting like other dogs. These things grab on and they hold on. Okay, so
and they do that hopping thing, like they're hopping back. They've got their jaws on you, and
yeah, you can see these. There's videos of these things jumping 15 feet and grabbing a rubber tire and holding on. And then when there's two of them, oh, good night. I mean, when I had a foot-long knife, and that one Negro set two of them on me on Sinclair Lane and Frankfurt Avenue. And I felt like I was going to get one of these things, but I knew I was getting chewed up. I basically had a short sword on me. I'd want to have a machete for dealing with dogs. So the entrenching tool. Now, if you keep that entrenching tool closed, it's like a good short war club. All right. And if you open that entrenching tool, then it's basically like a machete. And the main thing is with weapons with the dogs, most of these dogs that attack are going to be off the leash of an owner that really doesn't care about other people and doesn't care about the dog all that much. But they care enough to get it as medical treatment. And when they see a weapon, they see a big veterinary bill. Okay, so basically you're threatening a veterinary bill. Is what with you.
I mean, I think that you need to match the aggression, right? Like, if a dog approaches like that, those girls will be like, oh, how cute. Well, I immediately felt in a defensive mode, and she, at least the woman I knew, she could tell I was really uncomfortable as I, grabbed my child into the air. So just a signal.
Right thing.
Yeah.
If you try to go after one of these dogs to shoo it away, it's going to be right behind you for the kids.
Right.
Because they're predators.
And the kids trigger that chase. A kid is going to act scared and run away, and that will trigger that chasing instinct in the dog. That was what I was really scared of.
Yeah, you're basically, you're the doe, and the children are the fawns. Any predator is going to go after that fawn.
Yeah.
So you did the right thing. As far as man one-on-one with a dog, you got to be a faggot to lose against a dog, even if it's one of these little war machines. You take a bite, grab it by two legs, and break its back over a fence or a curb. Okay? Don't get fancy.
Yeah, I might drag it. Now, thinking more about it, get into the LaFond mindset, maybe I would drag it into the ocean, because we were right there at the water.
Oh,
a
friend of mine got his hound dog in Pennsylvania was killed by a raccoon who lured it into a creek and then got on its head and drowned it. Okay, yeah, that's definitely. Dogs aren't that good in the water,
especially a short-nosed dog like that.
Yeah, for a girl that could swim, that'd be great. Even if it attached itself to your arm,
yeah.
As long as you get in the water, it's not going to be able to drag you anymore, and then you can start swimming and kicking and stuff like that, and hopefully eventually a good Samaritan tiger shark will come by and
take a jump.
Jamondo K. Okay, who I would call him Menando K. when I was writing the early violence books. He used to work on a banana boat down in Antigua, And he hated dogs. He really hated dogs. And he told me what he used to do to him. He used to gather these stray dogs up, because in the West Indies, I guess they got like dogs like hanging around, and he considered them a nuisance. They try to get your fish and stuff like that when you're fishing and you lay your fish out on the pier. So he would grab these dogs and he'd stuff them in canvas sacks. Okay. And then after he got a few dogs in the canvas sack, he'd beat it with a stick to get them to quiet down. And then when they went out on the banana boat, he'd throw them overboard.
Oh, man.
Okay. So this is another method of how 75 IQ people out of the continent, okay, actually have a much better appreciation of, reality than some genius out of college.
I'm going to tell you that because my family, is not American, and it's very much an Anglo thing to revere animals, and like, we like animals, but we would never ever put an animal above any person. A dog in the families is a dog. It doesn't go in the bed. It doesn't, it's just different from how a lot of American families are. But when I was a young person, I made money looking after dogs and walking them and staying nights when people were on vacation. So I got to know a lot of dogs, and I just realized that the whole, like what you were saying earlier, how the suburban women will adopt these dogs to try to prove that it's the behavior is not intrinsic or whatever. And I just learned, looking after many, many different dogs, some dogs are just dumb. They're just dumb. You're never going to teach them. Some dogs are kind of grouchy. They're never going to be fun, playful dogs. I mean, the dogs are just the way they are. And some useless dogs are always going to be useless. It's not because they were abused as puppies. It's not some stupid excuse. There's just dogs that are just not much fun, not good dogs.
It's a chance for people to be a god or a goddess to a creature. So all these women think they're Artemis. Yeah, I do think that there's a unique relationship with animals for people that come out of the Aryan history, because this was the advantage that you had. In fact, the Aztecs were adamant that the horses didn't scare them much once they figured out that there was a guy sitting on top of this big deer. What scared the hell out of them were these dogs that were as big or bigger than people and would eat you alive. When they were used to chihuahuas, they were like these little food animals. They were horrified of these dogs. And Soto and the other conquistadors, they took that to heart, and, they used dogs with a vengeance. So this was this is part of the war making kit, the horse, the dog, the livestock. This was all really part of that aristocratic, which just means the people that are descended from the best people, which would have been the people that ran the war bands. That's what it comes from. You have people, Nathan Bedford Forrest said to his prospective father-in-law that he's always treated kindly his hounds and his horses, and therefore there was no reason why he wouldn't treat this man's daughter kindly as a wife.
It's true of, I think, Europeans, I mean, even Italians, or other non-Anglo-Europeans, they still love animals, but in my experience, there's a line that is like the Anglo line, where people just get much more attached to their animals and have more like of a people type of, but I do think that attitude is spreading. It, like so many aspects of cultural pause, it's, you see it like even with my cousins in South America, where there's people are like making out with their dogs on Facebook and stuff. It's disgusting.
Oh, I've seen, when I was in New York, I saw these little Asian people who should be like barbecuing these dogs, at their little eatery.
I almost spilled my coffee. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Actually dressing them up and parading them around.
Yeah.
It's almost like gaining their shitbag American street cred with, the other degenerates. So that is kind of fascinating. I do have one funny story. I don't know if I ever told this before, but when I was homeless for about a month, and I was carrying my clothes and my stuff around with me, and when I took my manuscript to see this young lady who was an African American lady who worked as a librarian, and she proofread for me. she noticed I was carrying my stuff with me. So she said, I have a room. I can rent you a room. Would you like to rent a room? I said, sure. And then when I was first there, I heard her arguing with her mother on the phone about having a white man in the house. And she's like, well, I want a man in the house so that people will leave me alone. And he's a scary looking white guy, so he's perfect. But her mother said, baby, don't you know if you got a white man in your house is going to smell like wet dog. You're going to have to get rid of your carpet. Because her mother was from North Carolina, and apparently down there, black folks that had dogs, the dog would stay outside or be in a dog house. But white folks that had dogs would, at least in their neighborhood, would let the dogs live inside with them. And then they always thought that these people smelled like wet dogs. These were all not poor, but working class agricultural people. People that owned their own couple acres and did their farming. So I always thought that was funny. And she's, I would tease her about that, on and on, I was like, you better not mess with me. I'm just going to take a shower, and instead of drying my hair, I'm going to roll around on the carpet like a big, Irish setter. Your house is going to smell like wet dog.
Oh, man. Well, I think that's enough about dogs. I was really stressed out. I was feeling sick after that. But anyway, okay. The other thing that happened to me, this is all about me this episode, is that I got a call from...
About time you start acting like an American woman.
Oh, you're going to make me clam up now. I feel...
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize again.
Shy. No, I mean, it's not going to be about me. It's just because it came up. It happened to me, but I'm not going to talk the whole time. What happened was that years ago I had a really serious office job, and then I quit the job because I wanted to look after my babies. And so I got a call from a woman who I am connected with professionally, and she basically laid this huge pressure, guilt, whatever kind of trip on me about why I'm not working and why I need to come work with her, and that my children will always keep me busy. So I've told her, well, maybe in another year I'll have a little bit more time with my kids growing, and oh no, the kids will always keep you busy. Without going into detail, I do other things than look after my kids, but my kids are home with me. They are not in public school. They have never been in daycare, which her kids were always in daycare and always in public school. So it made me mad again, because I thought it takes a lot of arrogance to just call someone up out of the blue and start haranguing them for why they're not working. But the other side of the coin is that it's a huge benefit to my family that I'm around. Okay, not just my immediate nuclear family that I homeschool my children and I do all my housework, all my own housework, scrub my own toilets. Yes, I do. But that my extended family knows that I'm around, that I'm flexible, that I can do things during the week. I can help them out. I can talk to them on the phone. So, and you play this role in your circle as you are now a traveling prophet, and you're a competent and trustworthy adult. And when you're, it just makes so much difference to have an extra person in the house or in the neighborhood that can help you with chores or sit with kids or talk to you. So I want to see if you could talk about that, like this idea of being the extra adult.
Probably a personal motivation why this person would try to, guilt you into doing something for them. But don't forget that a lot of people are going to be prone to do this. As soon as they find out that you're a homeschooling, you're a stay-at-home mom, they're going to proselytize for the system, okay? Because you're a heretic. Your children are supposed to be being indoctrinated so that they'll end up hating you when they reach adulthood. They're supposed to be in these systems. So, I wouldn't take that out of the context that she's not going to feel like she's putting as much personal effort into this as you feel like she is, because she's, in a larger sense, she's just kind of reminding you that you're way outside the norms. she's a missionary for the system in this case. It's really interesting that we live in a society that's in constant crisis mode. Okay, so I think we've got at least 5 guys that within the past 10 years got out of the military that are listening to this. If you look at the way the American nuclear family is supposed to operate, every member of this family is supposed to be scrambling to make as much money as possible. At the same time, imagine a military organization run on this basis. Nobody taking care of communications. Okay. Nobody's really got the radio. Everybody's shouldering their small arm or their heavy weapon for combat. Nobody's taking care of the food. There's no logistics. This is it. If you look at the way the modern American family operates and you compare it to a military system, it's nothing like the modern American military system where you got 100 people managing the logistics for every guy that's out there trying to engage in combat. It's more like the medieval feudal combat where you don't bring any supplies with you. You just steal the other people's food on the way. It's like being this most undisciplined army that can't even carry 2 or 3 days worth of food with it and has always got to break off and start scavenging for resources. It's really ridiculous, but the nuclear family, according to the guys that founded this country, back to the late 1500s, and it was best articulated in Thomas Waite's Planter's Play, citing Genesis, the real founding fathers, founding granddads of this country, promoted the nuclear family as an idea to get away from the European extended family, where the European extended family developed to deal with these finite resources. And you have to find a way to maintain social cohesion without endless new supplies of virgin territory. The extended family was abandoned, and the nuclear family was taken as the American model because it was the best way to strip mine the ecology and turn a forest into a pasture, or turn a forest into a garden or into a desert, depending on how it's handled. And because every house that is required for a new nuclear family is going to denude 40 acres of forest. It's going to cut down 40 acres of forest for every house. So every new family you generate, and so the forest was evil, the natural environment was evil, this was the province of the devil. This is still with us. This idea that breaking away from the nuclear family where everybody's scrambling as an economic unit of this little socioeconomic unit, that's still with us, and it's ironically also under attack. So functions in the nuclear family that are not straight economic, that are not strip mining what we have left.
I think you have to keep attacking it because the nuclear family does want to become the extended family. Yeah. So you have to attack it every generation.
Yeah, well, they attack everything except for the economic applications to the nuclear family. That's it. Every cultural aspect of it is being attacked, or it's just being supplanted, or both. It's like you shouldn't raise your own children, and children are best under the care of a professional, not an amateur like you. It's just an extension of the same plantation system that you had in the past, and the planner is now the municipal government. That's all. It's just scaled up.
Yeah. It's feminism is a big part of it because she actually attacked I don't even know what it is, but my I guess gender solidarity that I
Well, that I did a polynembus. Okay, he used to be polymachus and then polymarchus, and now he's polynembus. He's frying my brain. But we were discussing Catholic theology, and I did point out that demonology and exorcism, the studies of these subjects are, much more legitimate than social justice and feminism. So, we truly are in the loony bin with this.
Oh yeah.
So now we have these asphalt and concrete and masonry jungles that are supposed to be homesteaded again by the people that are being driven out of the suburbs.
All right.
And again, with the nuclear family, it's a horrible thing, but I think that anybody that does a set-aside position, my family wouldn't do it. My family definitely doesn't want, like, unemployed grandpa around, okay, helping out with the kids, or like, I'm going to be in Pittsburgh building retaining walls for my sister, okay? They don't want that. What they want is me making $150K and then paying for them to have some Mexican build their retaining walls, and so forth. You know, so it's funny, my step family, the family that my father married into, they like having me as a visiting person that'll help them out with stuff that they don't have time to do because they're all scrambling to make money. But the family I was born into, you know, they really resent the fact that I didn't continue making more money and I wasn't there to shell out for the parties and for this and that and pop in for the holiday with the high-end bottle of wine. You know, so most people don't want it, but people that do want it, and it can work in a pretty broken up situation. You know, I was staying with a guy who was divorced, but I was able to help him and his ex out in terms of, the children, you know, when their careers are both pulling them in different directions. I could step in the gap and say, okay, well, you know, I can get the kids to them. That's something that really magnifies the value of the people that are making money if you can do it. But most people don't think that.
As a parent, knowing of an adult that is trustworthy, reliable, available, that you can't put a price on that. You know, especially because I am a stay-at-home homeschooling mom, when my mom is around and I can just go grocery shopping for 2 hours by myself, you know, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Or just having one more body in the house that can talk to the children so I don't have to talk to them every minute. It helps
Or
so much.
having a man around when you run into some hoe with her pit bulls.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big difference. You know, there literally would have been no danger to your children if that man was with you, the one that was sunbathing. You know, if he was with you, he would have, he'd have taken care of the dogs while you grabbed up the girls. So, it's interesting. I've ended up doing this. I try to make myself useful and do work for people that I stay with because it's not really good for me to write for any more than 6 hours a day anymore. And since I sleep now, I can actually write as much in 4 hours as I used to write in 14 hours. So I have a lot of time on my hands and I want to do physical activities. We stayed at a place called Bear Lake with a friend of Bob's, Dante. He's a really great guy. I looked around. I could immediately see that they needed a retaining wall. He said, yeah, I said, could I use one of those railroad ties for the retaining walls? He's like, yeah, my wife hates them. She wants them moved. I was like, okay, I can move the railroad ties. So, you know, I probably did in 3 days, 16 hours of work while I was up there. And it was really great for me physically. It actually helped me with my writing. I enjoyed it. It helped them financially. And he insisted on paying me. I just used the money to buy meat for Bob's family at a butcher store. So, you know, because I just want to do it during my keep. But I think eventually, as the economy gets rockier and rockier, and we realize that we're probably just going to be in a 50-year recession here, I think that this type of really service barter is going to come back into being. You know?
Yeah, it's not even necessarily a recession, but it's like third worldization of the economy, where you have some people that are kind of immune to recessions because they have whatever skills are valuable, and then everybody else who just increasingly has less and less to do, and depending on either government largesse or depending more on family ties, then you get these emergent relationships which people connect. It's a connection. It's a human connection, you know?
Well, the government's cultivating a criminal class so that these people that aren't really, they're not cut out for work, so that these people will be out there to threaten the highly productive people, so the highly productive people can be trapped in gated communities and taxed at a higher rate. So they're doing their part. I like to think that I'm doing my part for the, survival of some animalized nuclear families. he even managed to help out in it. So the thing that's great about out here, other than the fact that I've never seen so many natural blondes in my life. I was never a big fan of blondes because they were all bleach blondes back in Maryland. Out here, it's like the real deal. Like they got these, the Mormons grabbed these chicks straight from Scandinavia, but didn't want any Mexicans or Indians touching. But this, aside from that, the best thing about being out here is being out around extended families of people, and even the community is kind of an extended family. These folks are all assigned elderly people, and not only do all the men go out and help all the old people whenever there's a snowstorm. The first thing they do is go dig the old people out, but the individual family will adopt like an elderly person and help them out, and just look out for them, So you got like these super family situation out here up in the mountains in Utah where it's really under attack than the other places. Every other place I go to, the family's really under siege, and it's even hard to form a family. I have some people that I train that are really, they are interested in starting families, but it's like, okay, how do you buy a new house every 5 years to stay ahead of the crime wave when you can't afford a mansion out in a gated community? And then when you're both working your overtime and your extra job, how can you have a kid? And then how much is daycare going to cost? Well, we don't want to do daycare, but it's set up right now so that you can't really form a coherent nuclear family unless you're at the top of the economy, unless you're in the top 7%.
I want to say that you can make choices that make it easier, and just in terms of lifestyle, right?
Yeah, I think it needs to be done. In the East, the big question is if we get married and we have a kid and now my wife isn't working, I'm only 3 blocks from the mudslide where I'm going to be at work and she's going to be getting ripped out of the house by these savages. So that's what I'm talking about in the East, is that if you're working class or lower or even middle class people, then you're less than a mile from the mudslide. So you're like, okay, if we go down to one income, we can't escape. And, we're not outlaw bikers and we don't have a clubhouse around the corner to scare these people away.
Yeah. And the neighborhoods, they used to be neighborhood solidarity, but that was destroyed 2 or 3 generations ago, and can't, every law and every economic incentive is against having that form again.
So, see the questions that people, or the answers that people come up to try to survive this. I'm hoping that the people I know will have a 50% replacement ratio. I think that would be optimistic if everybody I know managed to replace one of the 2 parents. That would actually be better than what's probably going to happen under these conditions. And people are trying. So.
Yeah, people want to. I think a lot of people want to, but there's so many cultural factors. One is that you're told from birth that the worst thing you can do is have a baby, ruin your life, and that's probably true until you're like 18 or 20, maybe. But then after that, it's not true, but that programming takes time. I mean, I
remember it from when I was 10 years old, watching All in the Family with my family, where the Rob Reiner character gives us, it's a whole episode on how the world's so screwed up. You're committing a crime against humanity by bringing an innocent child into the mess. And so, that's really been internalized by a lot of people that I know. That they couldn't imagine bringing a child into such a shit show. To a certain extent, society, proved this piece of propaganda prophetic, because at the same time, the same society's destroying conditions for safely raising children. But I think people are going to find a way. We have one reader, Reuben Chandler, who has his family in an RV. They travel around the West.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, he's probably spending his last couple of weeks in the mountains before he comes back down into internet range. So he'll load up on ebooks before he goes up into the mountains for the summer. So they have stuff to read. He's a listener too, so hey, Reuben.
Okay, well, we were talking about family formation, and so there's a funny story. I think it was in the Washington Post, where women who were looking for help with their family formation went to the sperm bank, and there's a 6'1", blonde, blue-eyed man, educated. He had some. I guess they write like a personal statement, and they liked his personal statement. And so this man has donated sperm many times, and his sperm has been sold around the country. And he has at least 12 autistic children.
So this guy's the Genghis Khan of nerds.
Well, this happens. Okay, I don't know a whole lot about this, but this happens a lot with people who use sperm banks because, let's face it, people are despicable racists, and when they see a resume for a guy who's 6'1", blonde and blue-eyed, they love it. They go for it. Nobody is trying to buy the sperm of 4'10" Guatemalan migrants who come here to pick produce. They don't. Nobody is paying good money for that sperm. No. They are paying for Aryan sperm. Let's face it. Okay?
Oh, I tell you what, I would really like to see the security video of two upper middle class sisters duking it out over this blonde donor.
Well, so there are donors. There's probably a huge disproportion where a small number of donors have huge numbers of children. One guy found like over, I think, 30 of his half brothers and sisters. Who,
Do these guys get money for their donation?
They get paid for the donation, and they even so this is some. I have not verified this, but it comes from the best possible source, which is Bronze Age Pervert. He says that Brazil is a huge importer of sperm donations because they want tall white guy sperm, and there's a shortage of tall white guys in Brazil.
Hey, if I was 6 feet tall and I could get like cute nurse verification for a facility, I'd probably do this for money.
Why not?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that the market for 5'8" mongrel Irish American sperm is probably pretty low. So I'll leave it to the Nordic guys.
You never know. I mean, maybe someone doesn't want like it. Well, I don't know, but your son is taller than you, right? He grew tall.
Oh, I got myself a big corn-fed woman. I didn't get married until I measured her brother's bicep and reach. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, there wasn't going to be another welterweight LaFond. I wanted a heavyweight. Yeah.
See, I really appreciate this because I think we were talking about AOC, Alexandria, whatever that girl. Yeah. And I understand that she's attractive. Okay? But when you realize how stupid she is, you feel like I was asking you. No, it's not. So just like you, okay, so you're basically saying you weren't going to breed with some kind of petite woman because you want your sons, right? So this is what I'm trying to say. Think of your sons. Think of your sons, all right, when you're looking for a mate.
I personally don't think that. I think that the intelligence of the man is what's important when you're having a child, and that you want a strong woman, physically strong woman. Okay.
You want both. You need to look for a balance. The intelligence comes from both parents.
Well, yeah, but if it's a problem in America. Picking an intelligent woman just means she's going to be brainwashed in social justice. Right. I understand. I know the struggle. I understand the struggle. Okay, but you got to figure out how to do it. You just have to figure out. Right. It's a problem. And I'm too old to figure it out now.
Me too. But so this guy has a dozen autistic children. So it's suggesting that there are some genetic factors they found. I think just from looking at this guy's kids, they found 2 genes that are strongly associated with autism.
I thought that there wasn't a single autistic child in sub-Saharan Africa except for ours. And I don't know, the children of Belgian sex tourists or something. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's something that doesn't seem to happen with people of African descent until they mix with Europeans. And then even then it's at a much lesser frequency. So it seems to be a European thing, right?
Probably. It's going to turn out to be a whole lot of genes. Some of them have a larger impact, some of them have really small impact. So it's kind of just a roll of the dice, a billion dice, basically.
Well, an older prophet of the streets while on the bus one time, and I used this in some fiction. I used it for a reader versus writer piece of fiction once on Kid Mo and Ray Ray and their run-in with Batman. But the older guy on the bus was talking to these other younger fellas, as Colin Flaherty would say, about why he didn't mess with people like me. And it's because they got the weirdness in the brain from all them ages of sitting in caves and sharpening mammoth bones and just they think about stuff too much. It's just they got the obsession. So that's basically it was like it's so long ago I can't quote the guy, but he's basically explaining to these guys that these quiet white boys ain't afraid of you. Their ancestors was like sharpen a stone all winter long, so as soon as they get out of the cave, they go kill something.
That's
you
right.
don't want to be that something.
It takes it. I mean, this is, today is the first day of fall, and people talk about how they love the fall, and it's true. I love the fall. It's what separates the ice people from other people. Now we know winter is coming, and we're ready for it, and our enemies are not ready for it. That's what I feel like. Reverend Chandler.
I like that too, but I gotta say, being up here in the high country, you see a lot of long faces as soon as the first cold wind comes up. Because these people apparently have a winter they don't even want me to experience for the hell of it. I was like, this is my favorite place. Like, yeah, I haven't spent the winter here.
It gets old. I know that it's true. It does get tiring.
If they spent a single winter in Baltimore and had to deal with a 60-degree afternoon on February 2nd, when all of a sudden you've got full-grown bucks out there with wife beaters on, swagging around with their pit bulls, and their hoes are out there in their booty shorts and their midriffs and everything, looking to pick fights. You might appreciate the harsh winters a little bit more. I would like to, before I end my day, spend a harsh winter snowed in writing somewhere. Hopefully that happens.
Yeah, that sounds great. I've been really enjoying the fall. The big secret is I've been talking about the beach a lot. The big secret is that in this area, September is really the best month because the weather is gorgeous and most of the people have left. People are in school. Oh, by the way, this is called homeschool privilege, where you can finish up your schoolwork for the day and go to the beach during the week when nobody is there. It's really awesome. So
it's a good time up here too because you can go into the mountains and there's not a whole bunch of tourists.
Yeah. So September is awesome, and if you have kids in public school, you don't really get to enjoy it. So just think about that. I want to talk about By the Weindark Sea. Can we talk about that?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I did a lot of work on the ancient Greek prize fighting. And I ended up coming up with a glossary of, I think it's like 1,700 terms and if you put these words together, you'll notice that you make the names of all these famous Greeks. Alexander means protector of men, for instance. Odysseus means grieve the Lord. All these Greek names were names that were earned and apparently mostly bestowed after the person passed away or after they achieved their fame. Who knows what they were called when they were younger. There was a lady that we were proofreading each other's work because she's a science fiction writer based in LA, VJ Wax. She actually contacted me because she saw a review of one of the two novels that I reviewed of hers online. I thought it was really good. It was self-published. It was particularly good for a female science fiction writer, where the science fiction readers will realize what I'm talking about. The faltering of the genre lately has to do with it being taken over by females largely. But we kind of had a little alliance where we were helping each other with tips on different things. I knew a lot of things that she didn't know. She was a lot better with the English language than me, and I knew history and combat and stuff she was real interested in. I wrote one very extensive article for her on knife fighting that she could use for research for a story she wanted to do, that she wanted to have a knife fight at the end of the story. So it was like a 13-page article that I posted back in 2013, something for her. And she had an idea that she wanted to write a story about an Amazon, but she wanted to be historical accurate. She really didn't like the Xena warrior princess type of stuff. She realizes that, women are smaller than men, and that, you can't, a chick's not going to be able to beat up a room full of guys that look like linebackers. And so she wanted to know if I knew anything historically about the Amazons, and I said yes, and I had a theory about it. And she said, could you write me a paper? I said, well, look, if I write something, it's got to be comprehensive, and I got to publish it, okay? Because I'm taking time away from, the only thing that I got going for me is I'm putting up a lot of content, and slowly accreting readers on this basis, that I put up so much stuff, and I'm being discovered because I've reviewed all these obscure books. So, I said, well, I also have designed a role-playing game, and I could write this so that it could be a source book for a writer or somebody that's running a role-playing game, and they'd like to set it in archaic Greece, because it's the same thing. The information you need to run a role-playing game is the same thing. Same information an author needs to write a story. So somebody like Michener, for instance, when he writes his historic novels, he's going to sketch a setting. He's going to research real characters. He's going to get real names. He's going to make sure he's got real weapons from the period, whatever it is. Any authors that's trying to do a good job is going to do this. They're going to try to get the artifacts and the culture and the setting right. And it's the same exact thing for a role-playing setting. So I said, I can write this book for you, but I'll sell it as a source book for role-playing games. I'm probably only going to sell like 2 copies. In fact, I think I have sold 2 copies over the 5 years it's been out. And this is my only book that's been pirated by the Chinese, I'll have you know. I found it. Yes, it's been pirated by the Chinese. So I actually thought that was pretty cool. I started publishing this stuff one bit at a time, and then she sends me an email. You can't publish any more of this because I'm really going to run with this story. So I talked to her I had talked to her in the past. She had worked in the film industry and she's a novelist on the side, and she wrote a story that she gave a copy of it, the manuscript, to somebody that's a film producer. And this person just took her story and wrote their own script based on the story and ripped her off. And she's one of those people that have written her a few books and spent most of her time promoting them. She would go to conventions and sign books and do all this kind of stuff. So to her, it was more than being about writing. It was about developing intellectual property and defending it tooth and nail and promoting it. So I said, sorry, I'm going to keep writing this and publishing this because I've gotten into it, and you're free to use any of this stuff. You don't have to cite me. I'll send you a copy of the book when it gets published, but I'm going to keep publishing this. And she said, our relationship is over if you continue publishing your work on this. And I was like, look, this is my work. I'm going to publish it.
And she wasn't paying you.
And she she wasn't doing anything else for me either. Okay. She was she was cute. Nice redhead. I even made I did a werewolf novel. Luther Watts, the African American werewolf, runs into this foxy redhead in a bar who's wearing leather, and I decided she would be a were-fox. I actually based that on BJ Wack. But anyways, she was a cute chick. She's right in my wheelhouse, about the same age as me. She was a local girl. We probably could have worked something out. But, she wasn't doing anything for me for 3,000 miles away. So I was like, sorry, you don't even have any vaginal authority here. So,
Oh,
have a
man.
nice career. And I'm writing away. And that's what happened. I still dedicated the book to her. She's cute. So I hope she's still cute anyhow. It's like 5 years ago. But time's not always as easy on ladies as on guys. So Miss Wax, I hope you're doing
feel
okay
that.
out there. I hope you're still cute out there. Okay. Hope nobody ripped off your stuff. And hope you write a great Amazon script. Okay.
Yeah.
You should
Well,
know. Okay.
then I'll tell the story what happened in this book that actually you sent me this book when we first started emailing many years ago, and people don't know this, but if you email James, he'll basically just start giving you books. All right, so so this is one reason he doesn't sell as many books as he might otherwise. But I received the book and I read it, but it was missing a bunch of pieces. It was like maybe half of the chapters were missing, but I didn't say anything because this was long ago. And I thought, oh, he sent me the wrong file. I'm not gonna make a fuss over it. And then just a week ago or whatever, you sent someone else a free book. He sent it as a free book to someone else, and that person did get back and say, hey, this is not a
Yeah.
complete file.
It's in like 7 chapters. So I
Yeah.
remember how I put the book together, and I wrote the book in chunks. I didn't write it in order, but I outlined it in order, and then I wrote it in chunks. So I start looking through my files, and I've got different folders on my computer. I've got different folders in these backup flash drives and everything that I have. I find this is a book that should be around 230 some pages. I find a 127 page version, a 138 page version, a 179 page version. I can't find the real thing. I've managed to erase the finished product like a half a dozen times and replace it with an earlier incomplete version. And I was going nuts. So I contacted Lynn, and she got on the POD platform where I published this. And lo and take hold, my intellectual property has been preserved solely by the mouthfeel of the great Satan Amazon for like the past 4 years. It's been up on their site, and it's, other than the pirated Chinese version, it's probably the only complete version out there. I didn't have it, so Lynn pulled it down. She's magically turning it back into a Word file, I guess, and she's going to proof it, issue it, and everything. So I will hope you two dudes that bought that, hopefully you'll like find the corrected version, okay, once it goes out there. And then we'll send a free version when it's done to the guy that who I forget who it was now, okay, who sent me this, because I get a lot of emails from people. But dude, get back in touch with me and say, hey, I want
the whole book.
Dark Sea. Okay.
Yeah. So thank goodness. I'm sure it's going to be a Crackpot book. Once I get my claws on it, then it turns into a Crackpot book.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lynn. And a big part of it is the glossary, of all the names I decided to end up using. It would be perfect if you wanted to make up names for characters in a fictional setting in ancient Greece. All you need is all the martial terms, because all the names of all the heroes and the athletes and even the philosophers, and the kings, they're just basically all
compound words.
They're compound words with, basically like, the same kind of stuff a brother would come up with in the street now, like, jump smashing machine. So that's, the ancient Greek version of it. You can get it.
Yeah. I love glossaries. If a book has a glossary, I immediately start loving it. So,
My first glossary was in The Logic of Steel. I think it was 28 Ebonic
yeah,
terms.
that's right.
Okay. Okay. To
Oh,
9. So my favorite one is, I hadn't heard, really, I only heard this in the late 90s. Okay. So I should have done like a full lexicon back then. To 9. As in to 9 him with your 38. Okay. So the 9mm is so prevalent in Baltimore that even if you shot somebody with a 38
38.
special,
You
you were
nined
9 in them. 9 in them.
him. Well, that glossary helps you to helps the reader understand the stories because the stories are given in the storyteller's words. All these people you interviewed. It's really good.
Vernacular. Okay. All right.
What is it? African American Vernacular English.
Right.
AAVE.
I detected 3 dialects that I was working with at the time, and there's a little primer in there on the 3 dialects as well.
Yes, I remember that from the Logic of Steel too. Which, if you want the Logic of Steel, you need to buy the Violence Project. Okay, we'll plug another book. The Violence Project contains the Fighting Edge and the Logic of Steel, and you can't get those books. You can only get used copies, and they're going to cost you more for either one of them than you're going to pay to get both of them. So buy
Now,
both.
since the e-store went back up on the site, we did have one of our readers bought the 3 Paladin Press as ebooks.
Oh,
Because
okay. Well, there
you
you
can
go.
now get those 3 Paladin Press books as ebooks on the site. The cost is the same. You're going to end up spending about the same for the ebook as for the print book. Yeah, but I just told them to put a high price on it because it's a collector's item now, and
It's a
I just
cool
got
book.
sick of people charging hundreds of dollars for something I made 53 cents on.
It's an extremely cool book. Yeah, the used copies are highly collectible. I think that because of the way the POD works, it's a little bit different, but it's a great value to buy the Violence Project because it's an awesome book. It's 2 awesome books. So buy them. Okay, you're going to want hard copies. And if you ever meet James LaFond, and you're going to want him to sign a book, it's going to be the Violence Project. All right? That's just my
Yeah,
opinion.
and if you want to forge my signature on your book that you buy, I'm okay with it. My signature's been forged more by my ex-wife than I ever wrote it myself. And all you do is you make a pretty prominent cursive J with this like tiny little loop at the bottom, and then scribble, okay? And then you make this kind of flamboyant on the top, crippled on the bottom, because the bottom part of my hand has been broken so many times. L, and then like this little P that looks like an A. Then you do this autistic capital F, and then you scribble, and that's signature.
It's a capital F, all right? That's important to me. One of my not any name that I have, but a family name has a capital in it in the middle, and I think it's very important to keep that capital there. So anyway, okay, I think that's our Crackpot podcast for today, is it?
Yes, I've got it. Yesterday I helped spin honey, so I hear Bob out there grunting on something. So we now have to clean the honey off of the different things we use to process. Okay, so I got to get out there and man the garden hose. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
to do in outer space. Mother Earth can wait. We will take the ones worth saving. Pack your bags, we are vacating now. Forever, forever. There's a cosmic radio in my head, and it's reading news articles, and the correspondent sadly said the universe is flat. He also mentioned that gravity is caused by our cavities and our reflection of time's not a receding headline, it's all mass produced in the back of our minds. Let's face it, there's some things that we will never know, and I don't ever want to know. And so it goes. Let's fuck it up, let us run amok. Let's do the things that we want to do. We're animals after all. Out yonder through the traffic and